Of course, you have heard of Vladimir Lenin. According to his biographer, Robert Payne, he's much more significant than Alexander the Great or Napoleon. He set the world on fire. Because of him, half the world was communist in the middle of the 20th century. Why do I talk to you about Lenin? He was a brilliant man. Don't think of him as a Russian. He had German and Swedish ancestry. There wasn't a drop of Russian blood in him. Don't think of him as a member of the proletariat. Remember, Karl Marx says, let's get rid of the bourgeois people. Let's put in the people who are the workers, the proletariats. Lenin wasn't one of those. Brought up in luxury. Even when exiled to Siberia, he lived in luxury. But he hated Christ. And he hated Christianity. On his desk, he had a bronze statue of an ape, 10 inches high, and a large skull of a human being. Very significant. If a communist did not accept Darwin's theory of evolution, he or she was counted guilty of heresy. The Russian Revolution was a terrible thing. They took the Tsar, his family, his servants, murdered them all. Thousands upon thousands died. And in the years that followed, it was Lenin's delight to write death warrants for groups of people, thousands of people at a time. Communism in Russia became terribly corrupted. Its administration was as bad as the administration before communism, altogether corrupt. A filthy swamp is how Lenin described the administration. Do you know how he got to Russia? The Germans, who were in collision with Russia, plucked him out of Switzerland, put him on a train that went through Germany, and he ended up in Petrograd, Russia, and immediately began to preach socialism of his ilk. In a few months, he was the head of Russia. In 7 years, he was dead. Lenin was terribly upset by the failure of his communism. This filthy swamp of maladministration with all its corruption. He said, I am guilty. I should confess to the proletariat, I have failed them. He was a terribly hard worker. For 20 years, his brain hardly seemed to stop. But 4 years to 5 years after he took over Russia, something began to happen to the machine. He was suffering terribly from insomnia because he did too much mental work, preparing speeches, preparing articles for Pravda. His brain was always going and going and going, and he could not sleep. And not to be able to sleep is to make you want to die. He had awful headaches. He was working too hard, and he had done so for 20 years, long before he came to Russia. But in 1922, he had his first stroke. Oh, the misery of this man who controlled millions, now found he couldn't control his own body. He's partly paralysed. He had 2 more strokes. Died at 54. This brilliant man, this man who was so wrong about government and about Christ and about the value of people. He did not value people at all. They're only statistics to him. He couldn't answer the question, what is man? They were nothing to him, dirt. Stalin followed on. Stalin was responsible for something like 50 to 70 million deaths. In the time of Lenin, things were so bad, about 27 million died from famine. And so Lenin passed away. Why do I talk to you about Lenin? Because he is an example of the trouble that comes if you don't answer the question properly. What is man? The right answer is he's made in the image of God. He's made to be a temple of God. Dear friends, may I say to you today, all that you want, all that you need is found only in one person, Jesus. If today you have a great spiritual hunger, you want something more than material things offer, may I remind you, Jesus said, I am the bread of life. If you're thirsty for something better than life is offering you, remember that Jesus said, whoever thirsts, let him come unto me and drink. If you long for fellowship and friendship with people that love the right and do the good, there's a door to that fellowship. Jesus said, I am the door of the sheep. If you're afraid about tomorrow, if the doctor's given you a bad report, or your lawyer about your money, your economy, Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. He carries the lambs in his arms, gently leads those who are with young, and a bruised reed he won't break, and the smoking flax he won't put out. And if your soul is overwhelmed with darkness because of your failures and sins, remember Jesus said, all manner of sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven unto men. Remember he said, I am the light of the world. No need to live in darkness. Jesus is the light of the world. All we need is found in him. May I recommend to you the gospel of Christ. It is the only answer to the needs of the world. The world is in horrible shape. Country after country is learning how to produce nuclear weapons. Sometime or other, some mad dictator may threaten the whole world with nuclear destruction. The only answer is the providence of God. The world is filled with sickness. Only 1 person in 10 in their 40s is physically fit. Diabetes is the most spreading disease of all after cancer. Millions upon millions, because they eat processed foods and because they don't exercise. I'm saying to you today, accept Christ's answer about man, accept Christ's gospel, and if you're weary and heavy laden, hear his words, come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Accept his promise and come today. God bless you.